This year has been eventful. Even with all that I had going on, I still played enough games to get a list. Same rules apply, only games I first played in 2023 count to the list, and release year doesn't matter, but no remakes or remasters of games I've already played. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into number 10. As a casual fan of the FNAF series, I didn't pick up Security Breach when it came out. But with the release of the Ruin DLC and a sale that happened to be going on at the time, I gave it a try.
Oh, for fuck's sakes, Roxy.
Security Breach is FNAF's first game that lets you roam around without many restrictions. You follow Gregory, a little maybe robot kid, as he tries to survive till 6 AM. As is tradition, the animatronics try to kill him, a person in a rabbit suit does whatever she does, and the staff bots scare you more than the other animatronics after a while. This game looks great on the PS5, even if there were some glitches at first and some still in the game, as I had Chica know where I was, didn't try to kill me, but also wouldn't leave me alone, forcing me into a no-win scenario. No, I'm not doing the jump scare again, I'm not that mean. On some good news, not everything is trying to kill Gregory. Freddy is friendly for some reason, and is helping you along the way. The Pizzaplex is huge and confusing to navigate, as the map has no labels, meaning you are wandering blindly when Freddy tells you where to go. Eventually you'll need security levels for progression, which are even harder to find as they are in the back rooms. And at this point, I gave up. For this reason, I only got to 3 AM before calling it quits. As I wandered around to find a new place, it usually ended up with a jump scare and sending me back to my last save. The thing is, I know this could be fixed if the maps were just a little better labeled. The only other real complaint I have is the cameras. They should be level sensitive, as there were a few times I couldn't see what was hunting me because it showed me the cameras from the level above or below me, not the ones I needed, leaving me blind yet again. At this point, I think I'd rather go hug Roxy than try to finish this game. From what I know, everyone that had a PS3 had Little Big Planet, but just how interesting of a concept it is. A level maker, and from what I remember, people with talent made a lot of really cool stuff with it. It spawned sequels and a kart racer, but if you asked me if Sackboy was well known enough to put his name on the front and center of a game, I may have said no. But Sackboy's Big Adventure may just prove me wrong. Sackboy's Big Adventure is a 3D platformer that's aimed at kids but is pretty fun. I haven't finished it yet, but I do plan to whenever me and my friends are tired of getting our asses kicked in Apex. But from what I've seen so far, the game isn't hard outside of a handful of optional collectibles, and the game gives you plenty to go through the game, as they are what you use to get past roadblocks in the game, basically just like the green stars in Mario 3D World. The story goes, Sackboy is enjoying a peaceful life with his friends until Vex invades and takes all of Sackboy's friends to do who knows what. Sackboy barely manages to escape, so it's up to Sackboy to save the day. The bosses, from what I did play, are pretty good and challenging, or maybe I was just not good at this boss fight. It's funny how I'm struggling to think of a creative way to end a segment on a game about creativity. Can't make this shit up. There are many game series that get a bit too stale and repetitive, and yes, that's how I feel about most yearly releases. But the Assassin's Creed series stopped doing yearly releases to try and improve itself. We got the RPG Assassin's Creed games, and I have no idea how Assassin's Creed Valhalla fits into what I know. I'm not even going to try to explain what's going on in the modern day sections, as I don't know much of anything about Layla, what the Staff of Hermes is used for, or why Layla seems to be afraid of it, but to be fair, I was only interested in the Viking stuff anyway. We play as Eivor of the Raven clan, who after leaving Norway to make a name for himself and his clan in England, and helping out the assassins or the hidden ones against the Templars, or as they were known as, the Order of Ancients, but Eivor is only helping them because he's friends with some hidden ones. as Eivor isn't an assassin. The combat is pretty fun, and stealth is fun too, with a ton of customization options for Eivor. But if I had fun with it, why is it so low? Well, that is because Assassin's Creed Valhalla is so fucking long. The story is enjoyable when you're on the main path, but you very often have to do other things in order to just stand a chance on the story. To put it into better perspective, I thought I was nearing the end of the game about 30 hours in. When I beat the final boss, I was over 90 hours in. I've played long games before. Persona 5 is an excellent example. I've spent over 100 hours on my first playthrough. Difference is, the story felt like it earned the long playtime, not because it had so much padding. Hopefully Assassin's Creed Mirage is shorter so I don't feel like ripping my hair out. Everyone has that one game from their childhood that they always want to go back to. For me, it was SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, or one of the Crash or Spyro games. And while I think the remake did some things wrong, it did well enough to get a sequel, in a way, with the Cosmic Shake. I struggle to call it a true sequel, as SpongeBob doesn't do many sequels, but the game feels like an expansion of what came before. At the beginning of the game, SpongeBob and Patrick are at Glove World when a cart appears out of nowhere and Madame Cassandra gives SpongeBob magic bubble soap, which ends up being an accurate description because of how wrongly things go for SpongeBob and Patrick, as Patrick gets turned into a balloon and Bikini Bottom is thrown into chaos, while also sending SpongeBob's friends to who knows where. So it's up to SpongeBob to find his friends and save Bikini Bottom. Again. How many times has SpongeBob saved Bikini Bottom now? The levels each have a different theme and are used very well with who is there. Now, there are times when you have to go back to the levels you've been to before for side content, and there is always a reason to go back if you want to. The bosses are fun and get really challenging towards the end, to the point where I thought for sure that I would get hit by the final boss, and was surprised when I didn't. I'm hoping we get more SpongeBob games like this. As much as I don't watch SpongeBob anymore, I still do enjoy the games. As some of you may be aware, I enjoy the Legend of Zelda series, but that doesn't mean I play every Zelda game right when it releases. Well, for the most part, I do, but when it comes to the side games, it's more of a pick and choose. But when streaming, I've been playing through every Zelda game, so when Cadence of Hyrule came up on the Wheel of Zelda, I was interested. Cadence of Hyrule is a rhythm-based top-down roguelite game. Now, I'm not the best at rhythm games, but as I went on, I got better. I'm still terrible at it, but I did beat the game without the set rhythm. That counts for something, right? This is one of the only games that let you play as Zelda, so naturally I played as Zelda, and she was a great choice. You get a handful of weapons, like the rapier being my personal favorite, but that may be because I didn't play as Link basically at all, which for a Zelda game is a bit weird. The game is based on Crypt the Necrodancer, with the main character Candace being warped to Hyrule for plot reasons. From what I remember, this never gets explained, but she does help stop the big bad guy. Now, all the bosses are based on a Zelda boss and an instrument. The results are fantastic. We all have that one series that we know is batshit crazy in one way or another, but we like it anyway. For me, and probably a lot of other people, it's Kingdom Hearts, where the lore makes no sense all of the time. I haven't played all of the Kingdom Hearts games yet, so Kingdom Hearts 2 loses the plot yet still makes the list. Kingdom Hearts, as we probably know, is batshit insane with its lore, but has a likable group of characters, and many different Soras. So we meet Roxas for the first 3 hours of the game. And how is this still one of the longest intros in gaming after 18 years? For the sake of actually seeing Sora, and to help me finish the game, I recorded the end game that I had left. So if you don't want to be spoiled for an 18-year-old game, skip to the time on screen for the next entry. So we have Sora, Donald, and Goofy on the hunt for Riku, and saving the worlds from Organization 13 and its nobodies, and the returning Heartless. Now, the Disney stories don't have much of anything to do with the overall stories. It's mostly there for early story progress, and set dressing before you get to the original worlds, at least as Sora, which as Roxas you only get to play as him for the first 3 hours, but he's Sora's nobody. And no, I'm not going to explain why Roxas looks more like Ventus and why Sora looks more like Vanitas. Now the bosses are really cool, with each of them having some interesting gimmick, and it's very satisfying to see how far you've come from the beginning of the game, from hitting things like this, to doing flippy shit like this, and this, and this. I don't even know what I've put there as I record this because there's so much flippy shit in the endgame. With Persona 5 still being on my mind every now and then, Persona 5 Tactica seemed to be very interesting when it was announced. The Phantom Thieves are back and looking much more in line with the art style I like to go with, which is interesting to see for this game. As a different turn-based system for Persona, the Phantom Thieves are now revolutionaries against evil rulers of the kingdoms, helping out Irina, and a bit later Toshiro joins the fray. The game is a bit shorter than what I was expecting a Persona game to be, as they're normally long, but this was only about 30 hours, which isn't bad, and the story told what it wanted to, so it works, but maybe they could have added one more kingdom. The final boss is honestly one of the most fun fights I had in one of these kinds of games. The side content and the Velvet Room are fun, if not a little punishing, with the one-turn missions being a lot more like puzzles than actual battle missions. Honestly, I don't have much more to say about Persona 5 Tactica, except Viva la Revolution! Now, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, despite my friend's efforts. But I did see some funny moments in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. But I needed to play Fallen Order first so I know what's going on in the story. After the events of Order 66, but before Luke became a Jedi, we play as Cal Kestis, a Jedi Padawan turned salvager who gets into some shit after saving a friend with the Force, and is now being hunted down by the Empire. The combat is something I didn't think I would like, as it plays more like a Soulsborne game than anything I've played before, and I also know why enemies don't all rush you. It's not fun when they do. Cal will learn and relearn stuff he learned from his master. Cal also meets some new friends and BB-1, the most helpful little guy in the galaxy. He does so much. The fights against even basic enemies can be difficult, but against the bosses, they are trials that don't pull any punches and will mess you up if you aren't ready. And for this next part, I'll talk a little bit about endgame spoilers, so skip to the time on the screen for the next entry if you don't want to be spoiled. After you beat the second sister, Vader kills her and gets ready for a fight. The first words out of my mouth were, "Oh shit, we're fighting Vader." About 5 seconds later, I said, "Oh shit, we're fighting Vader!" This just shows how powerful Vader is and how scary he can be. Now, before I get to number 2, I have to tell you guys something. The top 2 games were so good that they are basically tied for me. They change places nearly every day. So I wrote them as if they were both number 1, and for good measure, there may be some visual spoilers. So be warned. So in no particular order, here's number 2, I guess. As you are aware, if you've seen some other videos, I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man. So Spider-Man 2 was high on my list of anticipated games for this year. Now, in some ways, this doesn't have many improvements over Miles Morales, and the story is a bit short. But I always say leaving me wanting more isn't necessarily a bad thing. Even more so when we know more things are coming. So hopefully a bit more story content. Insomniac, please, I haven't seen the leaks. But I can't tell you how big the smile on my face was when I was playing. Swinging through New York is just as cool as before, and the speeds you can get by swinging and using the new web wings, oh, you can get super fast. The collector's edition has 19 inches of Venom, and no, I don't own it, but I want it. Raven was more the star of the show for the majority of the game, but both of his boss fights are really fun, even if I don't want to get to them again just for footage. Please finish adding the replay mission mode, Insomniac. Combat was just as fun as before, with the new abilities adding an interesting layer to the combat, even if I was a bit late getting to it because I was still in the old mindset of punches and kicks do good work, and I needed to grind a bit for the trophies to get the platinum. So that's more me being dumb than the game's fault. Miles is the other Spider-Man and has a few issues with Mr. Negative, which is pretty cool and gets a few curves thrown in. It does get predictable, but the fight with him is one of my favorites in the game. Miles also has the worst case of procrastination I've seen since I was in school, and that's just way too relatable to me. And as one last note, the intro is one of the best intros to a game I've ever played. Sandman is really intimidating when he wants to be. To the surprise of absolutely no one, here's Tears of the Kingdom. Now, at first, I was really enjoying myself with Tears of the Kingdom, but I had the biggest case of having no idea where I was when I got to Hyrule. And I really don't know why, as I was playing Breath of the Wild not long before it. It wasn't until I got to Kakariko. That is when I finally got my bearings. Now, we don't normally get sequels to Zelda games, and even when we do, we've never seen a Link start with the Master Sword. And we've also never seen the Master Sword break before. That just shows the power of Ganondorf here, and the fact that even when Link has all the hearts he can, I still don't feel confident in fights with some of the new enemies. The bosses are fun to fight, and the Ganondorf fight is just one of the best, most intense fights I've had in a long time. The new abilities are cool. Fuse is by far the most used, but the one I got a lot of use of was Ascend, just to get over stuff. Ultra Hand was cool to try, but I didn't use it much at all, and Rewind is great for cheesing stuff. I know the shrines have a few ways to solve them, and I feel like I made the hardest ways work most of the time, and at one point made my sister feel a little dumb for one of the solutions I came up with. Please let me celebrate this victory, it doesn't happen often. The story is just as segmented as it was in Breath of the Wild, but it feels more interconnected, with the sages helping Link fight after Link gets the vow. But I feel like before you get any vows, I think the game is a bit too difficult, and money is a huge problem. I'm not gonna lie, I used a duping glitch because you really get tight on rupees really fast. For the last thing I'd like to say about Tears of the Kingdom, I really enjoyed the story for what it is, and everything with the dungeons, but I felt like the sky was a bit of a disappointment. Depths, on the other hand, were fantastic, and all the references to the other Zelda games, just as fantastic. And that's my list for the top 10 games I played in 2023. Why don't you tell me your list down in the comments below? Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Later.